Imu's godlike powers are absolutely unstoppable because Xebec, Roger, Garp, and 3 of the future Yonko all together attacking at the same time did nothing to Imu at all. Their godlike powers are unstoppable, but I think I might have finally figured out why. The immortality, the dark flames, and even Doi Reversy itself, I do think we finally have a really good candidate for the dark god's powers of the One Piece world. As we now know, Imu is still working to create their own perfect world by harnessing the powers of a beast that burrowed through the earth and hell itself, a demon of unparalleled power based on several gods from our real mythology, and a being that has been around in the One Piece world probably for many thousands of years, because I believe that Imu's dark patron, the source of their true power, is the Hell Flame Serpent itself. And I hope that at the very least you agree with me that it has to be something like that, because I'm kind of struggling to imagine a world where anyone can even defeat Imu at this point. Absolute units, like some of the all-time strongest characters in the entire verse, everything they had at Imu and God Valley, and truly nothing happened. A combined galaxy impact, divine departure, rocks cursed, abyss slash, and even Whitebeard's first ever named attack, yes, in the story, the space breaker, didn't do anything. And then even tossing in Big Mom's Ikoku's sovereignty, and truly the most well-named attack of all, Dragon from Kaido, even that couldn't pull it off. Because yes, Kaido just shouts the word dragon, Ryu in Japanese. That joke, by the way, top tier Oda comedy, I think, in the middle of the most dramatic moment of the arc. In general, that little banter between him and Big Mom, gold. So, if all these epic attacks from several conquerors can't defeat Imu's immortality, whatever possibly could? Like, how would Luffy in the modern era pull this off? Cause he kinda has to. Well, that's what I've been really digging my teeth in this week, because I think I might have actually found the answer to that. As you probably already know, there are several figures from our real world mythology that match Imu's weird powers pretty well. You know, the dark flames, the Doi Reversy, all that fun stuff. I think I found the through line finally. It's snakes. Like, really big, scary god snakes. And I do have a feeling I might start to see where Oda is actually going with all of this, because I want to show you why I believe that not all of Imu's powers probably come from the same place. Like, the shadow powers seem to be dependent on the host to some degree, as we see Imu make these dark tendril-like claws or tentacles that match Saturn's in his body. Funnily enough, they detach from like the flame inscription or like tattoo or whatever this is, like these markings, which kind of might be a sign that these could be from Imu directly too. And of course, they also use shadow arrows when they're able to possess Gunko and Elbaf, so they do seem to be borrowing these characters' powers, unless these powers are from Imu themselves. It's really weird. Like, that panel with like Saturn's leg where they make the tentacles, it's really weird. But at the very least, I do think that the immortality and some of these stronger powers that they have might actually be tied to a power source hidden deep inside of the Red Line. And if Luffy is able to destroy it, something that, by the way, has been speculated for decades at this point, maybe, just maybe, he might be able to succeed where Rocks, Roger, and his own grandpa altogether fell short. And that, of course, raises the biggest question, though: what do I think is the Red Line, or is in the Red Line? And of course, I won't make you sit and guess, I already said it. I believe that the Red Line itself hides or seals the Hell Flame Serpent from chapter 1138's big mural inside of itself. And I'm fairly confident that Imu, the Earth God, probably has powers directly tied to it. Now, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, let me very quickly catch you up on why I personally have been thinking for a long time that Imu would be the Earth God from the Harley text. I think their name, their role, and the mural do make it fairly clear, at least. For starters, Imu's name is the opposite of Umi, the Japanese word for ocean. In both name and role as the most anti-pirate person around, Imu is maybe literally the opposite of the ocean. And we see this king figure with a crown, big and pointy, very much like Imu's, in the mural commanding the Hell Flame Serpent, it seems. And the Harley text does quite literally say that the Hell Flame Serpent belonged to the Earth God, together with his, Hell Flame Serpent. And honestly, looking into Emu's entire vibe, the snake branding is absolutely there. They hang out in the flower room in the Holy Land, which of course seems to be symbolic of the Garden Eden, you know, the place where Adam and Eve were corrupted by the devilish snake and ate the forbidden fruit of knowledge in Judeo-Christian stories. So, a devil in a garden corrupting innocent people sounds a lot like Emu to me, at least, especially when you consider the fact that Emu is also the only person in the world who seems to know all of the true history, and like all smart people, Emu has a badass evil book that they use to cast spells with. Also, just considering that Emu's palace is located above the Eve tree and the Holy Knight's whole vibe being like very much Christianity, I do think that Oda's really trying to draw a direct parallel here. Not even talking about the fact that the top of the red line is literally as far away from the ocean as humanly possible, unless you live in the Sky Islands, right? So that doesn't exactly scream Sea Devil. So at least that gives you an idea. I do explain it a lot better in other videos. For now, what's really important is to understand that Emu's role in the story as the world, as we've now learned, and, you know, the hidden king of the planet altogether, sets them up perfectly to be the figure from the first world who controlled the Hellflame Serpent. Very quick side note, the world comment kind of made me wonder a little bit if there's any tarot card kind of connections here. I mean, Luffy's very much a Fool, the first card of the Major Arcana, while the world is actually the last. Could be something I need to look into more, but, you know, back to the snakes for now. So, why do I think that the Hellflame Serpent is the source of Emu's real power? And why do I think it's located inside of the red line? Now, some parts of this will be new and some parts have been around for quite a while in the community as theories. One big reason is just that the visual overall style matches really well. I mean, Emu is this dark, devilish god creature who uses evil magic circles to channel the abyss, like powers from hell, using these dark black flames. Yes, it's a visual thing, but I kind of feel like it's a very valid thing to connect to, you know, the Hell Flame Serpent, black flames, right? Who smothered the world in darkness and fire in its battle with Nika during the First World. As for why I think it's inside of the red line, well, there are two big things really. One that me and many of my fellow theorists have been talking about a lot, you know, is the line from Dory and Broggy during Little Garden, who described the red line as the blood-soaked serpent. So we actually thought that this was the case for years, and thank God that Elbaf has finally confirmed this. And considering that in Norse mythology, the place that Elbaf is very clearly inspired by with their Viking designs, there is a massive world serpent named Jormungandr who lives in the sea encircling the entire world, and when it's defeated, it marks the start of a new world after Ragnarok, the end of the world. Now, for years, people have been theorizing that Luffy will destroy the Red Line as part of bringing the new dawn, and I do think that that's absolutely going to happen as well. Madame Charlie quite literally prophesies that Luffy will destroy Fishman Island, which is quite literally, of course, located under the Red Line, so I see no easier way to pull all of this off. Again, nothing groundbreakingly new yet, and hopefully with that being said, you can see why I think that the Red Line being tied to the giant Hellflame Serpent from One Piece from the mythology makes a lot more sense. But I assume that as a good One Piece consumer, this is not enough for you, and that's fine, I get it, but I did find something recently that really locked this idea down for me even more. Remember Reverse Mountain? You know, the place that Luffy and the crew enter the Grand Line from, the exact opposite side from Marijoa? If not, don't worry, just watch season 2 of the live action when it comes out and you'll see what I'm talking about, but anyways. Reverse Mountain is located again directly on the other side of Marijoa, on the other side of the world, and do you see those shrine gates right at the beginning of it? First of all, I didn't remember for a long time that these were even there, and we actually do get a close-up of them, and what do we see on that? I don't know, giant sea serpent carvings? I seriously don't know how I have missed this detail for literally almost a decade at this point. Oda really just told us right there and then, like entering the Grand Line, that the Red Line and giant snakes are connected. Now, I actually won't be digging into this detail too much today because my whole video on Tuesday is all about Jormungandr specifically, but the short of it for this video is that Emu's title of the world and their clear ties to the Hellflame Serpent seem to point towards the idea that maybe the big old snake is actually based on Big Jorm here. But you know what? I think it's actually way more than just that. I think that the Hellflame Serpent and all of Emu's powers are actually based on several snake gods in our mythology. As you can imagine, I went and dug into a ton of myths recently for some videos that I've been working on in the background, and something that kept standing out was how snakes almost appear in each single one of them. I talked just a little bit about it in my recent Shaki video where I tied Emu to the Kuja tribe with Lily and all the flower stuff, Flower Garden and Amazon Lily and you get it. And I definitely think that there's still a lot going on there, but regardless of if you want to think that Emu was a former empress of the Kuja and her snake buddy was the giant Hellflame serpent, or if you want to just assume that Emu separately controlled a massive snake, it actually doesn't super matter for this point, because what matters much more is that Emu's goals are the combined roles of several ancient snake gods in our mythology. For example, in Egypt there is the great legend of the Sun Eater Apophis. Apophis is the primordial embodiment of chaos and darkness and the eternal enemy of Ra, who is the sun god. Every night, as Ra sails his solar boat through the underworld, Apophis rises from the cosmic waters to attack the sun and stop the dawn from ever coming again. Yeah, I mean, you puzzle it together. The Egyptians saw him as kind of like a giant serpent or dragon type creature with eyes that could hypnotize the other gods and a roar that shook the heavens itself. Alright, so yeah, crazy giant snake with crazy special eyes that battles the sun god every night. And not only that, the sun god rides his boat around. I don't know, sounds a lot like Emu versus Nika and Joyboy to me. A giant dark god trying to harness or consume the sun, battling Joyboy, the first pirate and sun god who rallied all the people of the world to his side. I mean, Emu is a dark god with these hypnotic looking eyes that literally controls people like rocks, regardless of their own wills and wishes, right? We see that happening in this very chapter at the end. And this really also lines up with everything we know so far about Emu's motives. Then, the Ouroboros is yet another perfect example of a symbol across various mythologies that ties into the concepts that Oda associates with Emu. If you're not familiar with it, the Ouroboros is the ancient symbol of a snake eating its own tail, which I've noticed is typically tied to Egyptian and Greek myths, but we see in a lot of other places too, like Norse mythology as well. It's not so much a story with heroes and villains, but it's more of a cosmic idea that ancient people made visual, because the serpent endlessly devouring itself and renewing itself stands for eternity, cycles of the earth, and the unity of life and death, but also immortality. It's basically the world constantly destroying and recreating itself, like the seasons, time, or even the universe rebooting. But you, a weep, are probably used to seeing it tied to Full Metal Alchemist, because in real life, Full Metal Alchemists used it as a sign of transformation. Interestingly, in chapter 1163, we actually hear Emu talk about how they are planning to create their own world, or how they're in the process of creating it. And they are the constant through line of all three different One Piece worlds that we know of. Emu is the one constant in all the cycles of new worlds that have existed in One Piece, all ending in destruction and cleansing, and then like a completely new world being born again. And with their immortality powers, they're literally being destroyed and rebuilding themselves over and over again. So this type of snake analogy seems to perfectly represent Emu's narrative more than anything, but also the Ouroboros being a snake in a circle biting its own tail is just a spitting image of the red line again, of course. And we're like nowhere even close to being done here, man, because it's even more on the nose when we head over to Mesopotamian lore and check out the story of Gilgamesh. Not Gilgamesh, like sort of Gilgamesh, because in the Epic of Gilgamesh, the oldest story that we know, there is a section where the half-god King Gilgamesh fears his death after the fall of his friend. His friend dies. And so after surviving a huge flood and hearing about the secret to eternal life, Gilgamesh actually dives to the ocean floor and grabs a magical plant that can make him young again. Now he is planning to share this plant with his people, but while he's resting, a sneaky snake slides in and gobbles up that plant. Then, in true snake fashion, it sheds its skin and slithers away, reborn, while Gilgamesh just watches and is absolutely crushed. Now this is kind of used to explain why snakes shed their skin and why humans aren't immortal, essentially framing snakes as beings that cannot be killed, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. Emu just so happens to make their kingdom on top of the Eve tree, and if the Hellflame serpent is located inside of the red line, that means that a snake and a plant are both underneath Imu's main kingdom. I kinda would like to argue that it doesn't get a lot more on the nose than that. The Eve Tree and the Hellflame Serpent might just be the main sources of all of Imu's powers, and especially their immortality. There are stories in our real world, stuff that we know Oda pulls from all the time, that tie to snakes, immortality, sun god, and pretty much everything that has to do with Imu. I haven't even gotten yet to the gods like Wadjet from Egypt, the Cobra goddess who represents divine authority and royal power, Tiamat, the primordial ocean serpent who was slain to create the world, or the Greek beast Echidna and Typhon, the serpent parents of all other monsters. Pretty much just try it yourself, look up any snake god in our world, and I am certain that you can see how it's in some way, shape, or form tied to Imu, which is why I'm so certain that Imu is tied to One Piece's serpent god, the Hell-Flamed Serpent. Also, of course, not the first time that a serpent would be worshipped as a god. We see the very same concept on Skypia. So what if the Hell-Flamed Serpent is this complete package of various snake gods put into one being? But even better yet, I think that Imu is drawing their powers directly from it, and that is why Imu is so freaky and weird. They cannot be killed unless the Hellflame Serpent itself is defeated, and really, in the world of One Piece, Oda has already shown this to us. Again, in the Skypia arc, which we now know is so damn important, we get a ton of visual and narrative ties to Imu. The god Verth, a god of the earth, a literal monster god who is the world. Yeah, that is exactly how Rox is describing Imu. And of course, there is also Kashigami, which is the serpent god of Shandia in general. And considering that Kashigami was then referred to as the sun god, the rain god, the forest god, and the earth god, I do think that Oda really wanted us to realize that gods and snakes are very much connected during the Skypia arc specifically. And honestly, like, this arc is just the gift that keeps on giving. I recently went back and just like reread it all over again. It gets somehow better every time, and the same is now true for, you know, Thriller Bark and Enies Lobby, and it is so much fun how early One Piece gets so much better with everything new that we learn currently. Anyways, little side rant, but you should totally go back and check out some of the older arcs. They read so crazy different now. Now, something else quick that I realized as well is that the Lunarians, one of the few ancient races that Imu actually tried to wipe out completely, were the original inhabitants of the Red Line. They were known to be the original gods of the world before Imu got involved, it seems, so maybe they had a situation like the Minx setup where they actually lived on the back of this giant Hellflame Serpent, you know, like the Minx live on giant Zanisha. That would be something pretty cool. This actually ties nicely into a fun Reddit theory I found recently by a user named Ingo Boris, and they actually talked about that there's also a snake god in the Philippines apparently that eats moons called the Bakunawa, and according to that folklore, the world originally had 7 moons, and that pesky Bakunawa snake lived in the sea and one day got a little bit too hungry and saw those big, beautiful white balls in the sky and just gobbled them all up. Well, not me though, I don't eat balls like that. Now, Bakunawa ends up eating 6 of the 7 moons, and it tried eating numero 7 as well, but the peoples of the world, terrified of losing their last moon, played music to lull the snake to sleep, and thus saved their last moon. Which I have to admit lines up awkwardly well with the model of Ohara, which showed 7 orbiting planetoids around the blue planet, and now there's only 1 left in the sky. Kind of interesting. I'm really down with it, surprisingly, with this theory. Now, Jobo and the Minx all have a moon theme going for them as well. They do transform in front of a full moon. Gear 5 is depicted in front of a moon during its reveal, and the color schemes match as well, so maybe the Hellflame Serpent also chomps up moons and destroys things. That'd be pretty cool. We do see the moon actually very much in that same part of the mural with the Hellflame Serpent after all. Again, just a fun theory I stumbled across that I really wanted to share with you guys because I feel like it might be relevant to everything we're talking about, but you kind of get the idea now, right? Snakes, gods, Imu, and the Hellflame Serpent, it is all very clearly connected. And I'm sure that if you dig into it too, there will be a bunch of stuff that I missed and completely overlooked that is relevant for this too, that I didn't see for this video. So great, I may have found potentially the source of Imu's power, right? But how will Luffy ever beat them now? Like, seriously, considering that Gear 5 and Conqueror's Haki clearly can't override Imu or the Gorosei's immortality powers, and even Xebec and Garp and Roger and the Yonko together don't do anything, what in the world will? And I kind of hate to say it, but I think we actually already know, and I think the whole point of the rock section of Loki's flashback was to reveal that very thing to us on purpose. I think that Rox knew how to defeat Emu, but unfortunately, as we saw at the end of chapter 1163, he never got to fulfill the promise that he made to actually kill Emu. We also know that he wasn't successful in his plan. And the key bit of info here is for me from chapter 1156, when old Davy the Xebec is actually explaining his plan to show his crew the peak of the world. In this chapter, Xebec revealed that he wanted 2 specific key devil fruits, one of which was probably an Elbaf, and that Harold would need to eat one of those fruits in order to fully work for his plan. Then the Gigachet Captain John revealed that Xebec then wanted to find the ancient Galela shipwrights, and he then tells us that Elbaf is the key to taking down the Holy Land and rallied his troops. So, what can we actually get from this? Well, for starters, the man needed 2 fruits, not 1. The one that I think that he wanted Harold to have was probably the Nika fruit, which ended up getting stolen from Elbaf, as we seem to at least have been revealed during chapter 1152. Again, it does just make a lot of sense. Nika was a legendary god worshipped in Elbaf, Harold was the king, and everyone seemed to rally behind him. If I'm Xebec, I'd also assume that Harold was the next Joy Boy, right? And it also seems like he wanted Harold to eat it so that he could rally the Galela after they were unfrozen and lead Elbaf to attack Merijoa. But what if that actually wasn't the goal? What if instead Xebec was actually implying here that he needed the Giants of Elbaf and the other devil fruit to destroy the Red Line instead? That's why he wanted the Galela and sees Elbaf as key, because if these ancient shipwrights actually did build the ancient island-destroying weapon Pluton and Elbafians are needed to pilot it, then Rox's plan suddenly makes a ton of sense. If Emo is just absolutely immortal, then Xebec needs to destroy the source of that power first, the Abyss first, the Hell Flame Serpent, in other words. Xebec revealed in his confrontation with Emu directly that he couldn't defeat them right there and then, even though Xebec is very clearly very broken, and I think it's because that damn snake was still very much around. So from there on out, Xebec started building a crew that could help him locate all of the pieces to his puzzle, the keys to defeating the Dark God Emu. He needed to destroy the world itself. And this definitely lines up with a lot of the stuff that we're seeing in the modern day too, and that Oda has been setting up for many decades now. Loki, Dragon, and Teach all 3 plan to change, destroy, or conquer the world, it seems. Luffy, of course, has seen Laboon struggle with the Red Line and owes it to his whalish rival to defeat that hurdle in his path. Not to mention that we do know Luffy will destroy Fishman Island, which is located right beneath, once again, the Red Line, and so I do think that the Straw Hats are really being set up to destroy this entire damn wall. Mr. Luffchef, tear down this wall. And I guess make the all blue for Sanji, you know, while they're at it. Might as well throw that one in. That's been a theory forever. And this might even all be why Teach wanted the Quake fruit, because he thought it might help him destroy the Red Line potentially. After all, Sengoku does reveal to us that Whitebeard had the literal power to destroy the world. But we also know that Karibu is about to tell Teach maybe where Pluton is, so just maybe, Blackbeard might use both Pluton and the Quake Fruit to actually try and destroy the Red Line, unleashing the Hellflame Serpent again and opening up a path to defeat Emu. Maybe the Attack on Titan author knew something about One Piece that we didn't. Maybe he took that idea from Oda. And somehow, someway, it really seems that the Red Line will fall one day, and I do think that maybe it must fall in order to give the world even a fighting chance at defeating Emu, because even if Emu is not immortal, I'm sure they're still plenty powerful by themselves. And again, clearly Rox, who knew the most and was probably the strongest, still couldn't handle it himself. Like seriously, sometimes being a theorist gets so depressing because we nail the callouts and then have to watch what we assume would already happen. Rox being Doi Reversy is brutal, of course, and it raises a lot of interesting questions. Like, what the hell is the limit of his power if an uber powerful Haki user like Xebec, like the peak of the pirate world, can just be transformed and used by Emu? Could they do the same thing to Kaido and Big Mom and Roger? Like, spooky. Also, actually, speaking of uber powerful hockey users, I recently had a rep legend and D&D god on the Drink Sake podcast, Daniel Rustich. I'm pretty sure a bunch of you have listened to his music, and if you want to hear some crazy stories about One Piece, about his tours and his new Dungeons & Dragons campaign, and even learn how to properly rap, go check it out after this video. I'm gonna link it in the description. Alright, but with the little podcast plug out of the way now, seriously, we do need to focus more on Imu's two other big powers, the Doi Reversy, which we see again in this chapter, and their ability to apparently just create things out of thin air, like the double barrel shotgun and their dark magic book. Because I don't actually understand at all how anyone even survived God Valley to begin with if Imu had the ability to turn anyone he wanted to into a demon. But actually, that might not be true. We do know that Garp, Big Mom, Kaido, Whitebeard, and Roger do definitely survive this epic fight, even though Rox does not. So maybe there is actually a reason that Imu could only turn Xebec into a demon? I mean, if you're tuned into the theory space, you probably know where I'm going with this, because somehow I missed it, and it almost seems like a lot of people did, but the name of the move that Imu uses to turn people into demons, Doi Reversy, might just straight up explain what's going on. I think we all kind of rightfully tied the idea of Doi Reversy to the game Reversy, which, literally appeared in the panels when Imu used it during the modern era on Elbaf, but the name Doi Reversy itself actually comes from Latin and has a direct translation that explains a lot, and I'm a little bit, ashamed because I actually had Latin for like 4 years in school. Didn't really care too much about it when you're a teenager, right? So, but still a little bit ashamed I didn't look more into it. Doi Reversy translated reads, I returned home. And seeing how Imu has only used Doi Reversy on the giants of Elbaf, on Elbaf, and Xebec and the Davy clan on God Valley, it kind of seems like maybe the limitation of this technique is who and where it's actually used on. And it does seem as if, at least for now, Imu can maybe only use this move on people in their homelands, which definitely shines a very sad light on the comments that Xebec made to Harold in chapter 1159, because Xebec confirms and seems very confident that the Celestial Dragons did not want him coming to God Valley, claiming that they actually miscalculated where it was hosted and as if fate was guiding him to the island. It was even a really fun idea I saw floating around about this being the reason that Roger started the Great Pirate Era, to get people away from their homes, which would be a very 4D chess move and would explain why Imu hates pirates so much more than they probably have reason for, and why they want to keep people where they actually grew up in. Or maybe that's the reason why Joy Boy might have flooded the world, not Imu in the past, so like Imu doesn't have control over the entire landmass, which might have been this one big kingdom. I don't know, it kind of works in the other direction too, that, this might have happened to stop Imu. But obviously all that pirating doesn't also work when leverage still exists, because we do know that Garling found the Davy clan there, and it does seem like God Valley itself was a big, massive setup. Like, it almost seems like Imu and Garling even planned the entire hunting festival expecting to lure Xebec out there. I mean, I know he claims nobody knew he was a Davy, but Imu seems to be very much confusing Rox for Davy Jones, which kind of suggests that they look similar, or maybe have like similar auras, right? But also, like, I don't know, man, come on, like, maybe telling the Dark God to their face that you worship Davy Jones wasn't exactly a smart play there, Xebec. Just saying. That might have been what came back to bite you in the butt. Anyhow, it does seem like Garp and Roger are going to end up defeating Demon D Xebec on God Valley, and that is the dark truth of the God Valley incident. Now, does that raise some questions for me? Definitely. Like, for one, why did nobody ever talk about this mighty dark god celestial dragon being throughout the entire show so far? And actually even more confusing, how does Garp have his job? Like, the dude knew that he was attacking Saturn, he literally says so in the chapter, so you're telling me that Imu just kept this guy around employed, paying him a salary that was throwing haymakers at them? Kind of crazy. Maybe Imu's got some dirt on Garp, or is going to leverage Dragon's life to keep him around. Wouldn't that be a wild reveal, right? And again, it's just such a weird thing to really think about. Like, I had this theory that maybe there is something special about the Monkey Clan specifically, because, Monkey D. Dragon was in the Marines, Monkey D. Garp was in the Marines, he wanted Luffy in the Marines, maybe Garp's father was in the Marines. Is there something about the Monkey Clan, specifically the Monkey family, that kind of ties them to the world government? That could explain why Imu kind of needs them, right? Where maybe like the monkey are the key to something. That has been a theory in the Japanese community for a while, by the way, that Monkey D. Luffy, Mon is the word for gate, and Ki is a key. so that the monkey family might be the key to a gate. Would kind of make sense, especially with the main role that Luffy has in the story. He's the protagonist. So maybe similar to the Davy clan, the monkey clan also has something that makes them special, and Imu knows about that, and they know that they need a monkey on their side in order to do something or prevent something. Seems to be like a really fun option, and it might explain why there's something important about Luffy's family and why they are so insanely powerful. I mean, again, looking at Garp, Dragon, Luffy, that entire bloodline is absolutely insane, and I do expect that there is something special about it. Or I guess the other option could just be that Imu straight up doesn't care. Like, maybe, like, while they're in this state, I mean, they're attacking Marines and pirates alike. They don't really give a crap. They just want to kind of wipe out everyone, stop rocks, and just eradicate the entire island here. So maybe Imu isn't even aware that Garp is attacking them. That could also be a real thing that's going on here. Though again, we could also ask from the other side, why in the world, again, is Garp still in the Marines? I do talk more about this in the video about the monkey family, but it really doesn't make, he must have some sort of plan going on, like whether he's the one who started Sword or he has some agreement with Dragon later on to stay in the Marines. After seeing God Valley and him being very happy to just jump in and attack Saturn and Imu, why are you a Marine? Why did you let Ace die? There must be some greater plan that Garp has, right? That he actually cares about, because otherwise his entire character arc makes no freaking sense. So very curious what that actually is. Sorry, going back to the chapter, at the very least it seems like we've gotten some clarity now on, some of Imu's most broken powers, which does also kind of make me wonder if we'll see Imu head, to anyone else's home island potentially to lure them into becoming a demon. I don't know, can you just imagine Imu going to Dawn Island or Shimotsuke Village so that they can turn a Luffy or Zoro into a demon? That would be straight up wild. And this is kind of a really fun idea to play with. You can kind of ask the question, who would Imu realistically want to turn to their side, either because they're very powerful or because they might work really well as a hostage or just as a bargaining chip potentially, right? I mean, funnily enough, since we think that Blackbeard probably was from Lulusia and Lulusia got destroyed or Ohara got destroyed, I guess they couldn't turn Robin or Blackbeard into demons. Funnily enough, Robin already is a demon. I'm not sure if that's on purpose or not, the devil form that she has. That's kind of very interesting. Out of the Straw Hats, I mean, a Zoro Doi Reversy thing would be absolutely crazy. Sanji would go crazy. Usopp would go really crazy. Again, it's kind of interesting. I've talked about this idea before. The fact that all the Straw Hats have this demon theme going on. I don't know. It just seems so much fun to think about them potentially actually awakening demon powers. Maybe that would be what Imu would turn them into, or maybe Luffy and Co are gonna find a way to use that power, right? I mean, Luffy has Sun Wukong, the Monkey Devil, we have Ashura with Zoro, we have Ifrit with Sanji, we have the Tengu with Usopp, the Mon Fleur, obviously for Robin, and so on, and it just keeps going and going. All the Straw Hats have these demon ties, or, yokai ties, so maybe that's some Oda foreshadowing for potentially their Doi Reversy forms, or them using the Abyss. Could be pretty cool. Otherwise, someone outside of the Straw Hats could be pretty fun. Just imagine a Doi Reversy Shanks and Luffy having to actually defeat and kill his mentor. Can you imagine Luffy reuniting with Shanks, and Shanks, the moment Luffy arrives, is smiling and then gets turned into a demon by Imu? Oh, that would be so rough. And then there's a whole list of characters who would just be absolutely devastating if they actually got turned, into demons and had to fight the Straw Hats. And I think at this point it's almost guaranteed that Imu is just gonna take someone we love, someone that Luffy cares for, and gonna turn them against the crew. The only real question is, will the crew find a way to, cure the people? Is there a way to undo Doi Reversy? Is that part of Nika's powers potentially, bringing light, bringing the dawn to, people who have been captured by darkness? Hopefully. Otherwise, that would create some very dark and twisted moments where the Straw Hats and Luffy might have to defeat and take down people that they really love and care for. Or I don't know, maybe we'll get a really odd reveal that Summers is actually Nami's dad, and Nami will become a demon when the Straw Hats raid the Holy Land. I know that seems a little bit out of left field, but Oda did recently reveal that Summers has the very same hair color as Nami, orange, right? Which kind of opens up a whole different can of worms. And of course, I should also talk about the other insane power that Imu has. I'm just gonna brush the Nami stuff under the carpet for now, because Imu, of course, is the dark opposite version of Luffy's Sun God power. Just like Luffy, they can just apparently make objects appear, like the book or the shotgun on Elbaf, just like Luffy does with random things like the baseball bat or his sunglasses. So I do kind of wonder if Imu truly is the dark opposite of Nika somehow, the yin and the yang, right? Or if the Hellflame Serpent also has some weird matter creation powers. One thing I actually was thinking about while reading this chapter, and I again want to bring up this panel where, you know, Imu literally peels off the dark flame pattern of the leg that, you know, Saturn has, the spider leg. And I was kind of thinking that it might be interesting if the dark flames we see for the awakened, I mean, we still don't know if they're devil fruits, right? The Gorosei, but you know how they have the black Haragumo, the black, you know, flame curtain thing, the scarf, and Lucci has a black one, but then Luffy has a white one, Yamato has a white one. I'm kind of curious if the flames themselves are tied to one of these gods. Like, can whatever power Imu has, maybe, you know, being the Hellflame Serpent or something, can the Hellflame Serpent, you know, control all devil fruits that are tied to itself, everything that would get a black flame, you know, Hagaromo? And then does that mean that Luffy, with the Nika powers, is he able to maybe control people who have the white Hagaromo, the white flames, creatures that are good? It could kind of also explain the Hellflame Serpent fighting the dragon with fire in the mural, because, you know, they're both spewing fire, but maybe the Hellflame Serpent is actually using the black flames, the dragon, Nika, is using the white flames, and each of them has like a domain of devil fruits that they can actually rule over and that they can hand out. So maybe the answer is that half the devil fruits belong to Nika and are good, and half the devil fruits actually belong to Imu and are evil, quote unquote, and each kind of has domain over one half of these. That could kind of explain why the powers are so similar. Let me know if that makes sense. Just something randomly that I was thinking about while looking at the chapter itself and seeing that power. It would kind of be, you know, a really cool thing that could make sense also with everything we know about the mural. And as you probably can tell, Imu has been someone I've been thinking about a lot recently. I mean, the line drop in chapter 1163 where Imu says their world isn't complete yet has me wondering a lot, and it actually adds to that weird marketing thing that Oda has been doing with the Imu plush a while back. Imu was sitting at the desk of Oda, seemingly writing the story. Was that Oda hinting at this perfect world Imu is trying to make? What actually is Imu's perfect world? Well, I actually did my best to map it out, what we have of it so far, because Imu's trying to create their own world, so let's see what we know about it. Because in case you don't know, I actually created the most detailed map in One Piece with all the known islands, and I'm just now learning that it is Moose World by design. I mean, it looks very designed, right? So if you haven't watched it yet, I really recommend you checking it out. Click here. I explain the entire world, every single island, and everything that's weird about it. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Thanks to all of our fantastic Patreon members. The map is available on Patreon, by the way, and I will see you in the next video on Tuesday, where we talk about how to maybe defeat Imu, this invincible immortal being.